Hi folks, Andy Fionn here, Rambles with Robin and Ruby. Unlike some of my previous videos, there is no science in this video. This is largely a travel video with a focus on landscape and some of the large roadside attractions that we saw while driving from Marsden, Saskatchewan, across Alberta into northeastern British Columbia to the town of Dawson Creek. Dawson Creek is known as Mile Zero of the Alcan Highway, also known as the Alaska Highway. Along the way, we spent all of our time crossing the Interior Plains Physiographic Division of Canada. One of the interesting features of many small towns in Canada is the presence of some sort of large roadside attraction and lovely wall murals. Of course, we stopped at a few of these, which I will share in this video. Join me as we continue our way northwest towards Yukon and reach a major milestone, the beginning of the Alcan Highway, also known as the Alaska Highway. Enjoy! On May 28, 2023, we left Big Manitou Regional Park in western Saskatchewan and headed west towards Edmonton, with stops along the way. Our first stop was at Elks Park in Vegreville, Alberta, the home of the Vegreville Egg, one of the large roadside attractions that I mentioned. The Vegreville Egg is a large metal sculpture of a pysanka, which is a Ukrainian-style Easter egg. Well, we're here in Vegreville, and the sign says this is the world's tallest Ukrainian egg. The sign says it was a centenary project, the Vegreville Pysanka, 1974. And it's a weather vane, so it moves. Sort of. It's not a small egg. It's 9 meters or 31 feet long, and it stands 3.5 stories high. Although the information sign suggests that it is the world's largest pysanka, it is in fact the world's second largest pysanka. The biggest pysanka was built in the year 2000 as part of the Kolomia Pysanka Museum in Ukraine. In the early 1970s, the Vegreville and District Chamber of Commerce decided to build the pysanka to symbolize Vegreville's rich Ukrainian culture and the peace and security that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police offered the area's pioneer settlers and their descendants. The sculpture was dedicated in 1975 during the centennial of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And here's a little-known fact. The Vegreville Pysanka is reported to be the first physical structure designed entirely using computer-aided geometric modeling software. Go figure. As an aside, if you're traveling with kids, there's a fabulous playground in the Vegreville Elks Kinsman Park. It's one of the better ones that we've seen. If you continue to travel around Vegreville, keep an eye out for the wall murals. This cheerful one was painted on a building. Its theme is Learning Together, and its scene reflects the farming history, local wildflowers, and the Ukrainian influence in the area. Our next stop was the town of Mundare, Alberta. Mundare is the home of the Mundare Sausage roadside attraction, the Blue Bison, and a monument honoring Ukrainian immigrants. As with many roadside attractions, the information sign states that the Mundare sausage is the, wait for it, the world's largest sausage. Well, we're at the Mundare Sausage roadside attraction with the wind. And there are lots of people here. Steady traffic. This massive kielbasa stands 42 feet tall and weighs in at 5,445 kilograms or 12,000 pounds. That's a lot of sausage. It is a tribute to the local company named Stanichi's Meat Processing, a family-run sausage factory famous for its kielbasa. Sadly, because of our dietary considerations, we did not sample the kielbasa, and therefore I cannot comment on the claim that the company makes the best Ukrainian sausage in all of Canada. In the same park is a large blue bison. This life-size bison is a tribute to the millions of bison that used to roam the plains, their importance to Indigenous people whose homelands overlapped with the bison, and to the establishment of Fort Edmonton during the late 1800s and early 1900s. The bison is painted in blue with Bosanquet designs, scenes that reflect the Ukrainian culture, and symbols that represent the Indigenous people. Regarding the bison, they were and remain an important part of the lives and traditions of Indigenous people in the area, and to the many plants and animals that shared the bison's habitat. It may be hard to imagine, but prior to the arrival of the European settlers to the prairies, there were 30 million to 60 million bison on the plains. However, with the arrival of European settlers, all of that changed. By 1889, only 512 plains bisons remained on the prairies due to overharvesting by Europeans, loss of habitat due to expansion of European settlements, and deliberate culling by government officials to eliminate the bison and as a means to suppress Indigenous people who relied on them so much. Efforts by conservation and Indigenous people have arrested that decline, but present-day numbers have remained stagnant around 20,000 plains bison since 1935, and all of those are free to roam in conservation areas within protected parts throughout North America. For comparison, there are over 400,000 plains bison that are restricted to commercial herds. Also hidden among a shrubbery at the park is another monument that is dedicated to European pioneers of Mundare, who were instrumental in the recent development of the area. Again, there is a strong Ukrainian presence reflected in the monument. Finally, across the street from the park, there are a series of wall murals that once again reflect the Ukrainian settler life in the Mundare area. I leave you with some images from those murals to enjoy. After leaving Mundare, we continued west and arrived at the city of Edmonton, Alberta. I confess I never enjoy driving through or close to a large city, but we wanted to check out an RV site to potentially use when our grandsons joined us later in July. That last leg was uneventful, despite a minor complexity created by road construction in the area of the RV park. It had been a long day. The next day, we left Edmonton, headed for Grande Prairie, Alberta. We drove northwesterly along Highway 43. The first tourist attraction we saw from a distance was the Rochefort Trestle Bridge. It is reported to be one of North America's longest wooden train trestles. It's 736 meters, or 215 feet long, and 33.5 meters, or 110 feet tall, and it was built in 1914. For several reasons, we did not stop to try and get a closer look at the bridge. Now, summer of 2023 will likely be remembered as the summer of forest fires across Western Canada. We did see some lingering forest fires in the distance, but the impact of the fires was quite evident where Highway 43 passed through areas that had burned earlier that spring. One observation that frankly amazed me was the speed with which burned electrical poles were being replaced. Our plan in Grande Prairie was to stay at the Grande Prairie Rotary RV Park. This is an urban RV park, and that was a new experience for us. The park sits within a rock bowl, so it was relatively quiet and very close to a shopping area where we could walk to get provisions. Its relatively small size suited us. The washrooms and the ground were modern and spotless, and yes, we would stay again. The following morning, we left Grande Prairie, Alberta during a rainstorm and headed to Dawson Creek, British Columbia. Our first stop was the Giant Beaver roadside attraction, located in the town of Beaver Lodge, Alberta. The Giant Beaver was unveiled in July 2004 as part of Beaver Lodge's 75th anniversary of incorporation. Information about the beaver animal its history, habitat, and behavior, as well as information about the town of Beaver Lodge, accompanies the giant beaver statue. The statue is made of foam blocks and stands 5.8 meters or 18 feet tall. From Beaver Lodge, we continued northerly towards the border with British Columbia. The roadside landscape is relatively flat with abundant trembling aspen, which is typical of the southern Alberta uplands in this area. If you are into photographing border signs, there's an excellent and large paved pull-off area at the border between Alberta and British Columbia. We knew we were getting closer to Dawson when we passed through the town of Bouscoop, British Columbia. And the next thing we knew, we had arrived in Dawson Creek. We could see its distinctive tourist information center in the distance, which is an old grain elevator. Once you pass around the traffic circle, the large parking area on your right provides ample parking while you get tourist information, visit a local museum, browse through a fine arts and crafts store, and catch the mandatory photo of Mile Zero of the Alcan, also known as the Alaska Highway. But wait, is this really Mile Zero? More on that in a minute. The Dawson Creek Tourist Information Center is quite lovely. Outside, there is a metal statue of what appears to be a road surveyor pointing west along the track of the Alaska Highway. Take some time to explore the downtown of Dawson Creek. There are some wonderful wall murals that are part of the Dawson Creek Memory Lane, an art gallery mural project that illustrates the 1958 festivities associated with Dawson Creek officially becoming a city. But I can hear you saying, where is Mile Zero of the Alaska Highway? Well, there are some clues to its location. The first clue comes from a big flagged monument sign located at the end of the parking lot at the Tourist Information Center. The sign says Mile Zero, but the red arrow points to downtown Dawson Creek. This monument is not Mile Zero. The second clue comes from a sign on the Tourist Information Center that directs you to Mile Zero. That direction is quite clear. Mile Zero is located southwest from the Tourist Information Center in downtown Dawson Creek. The third clue is on a mural that shows an intersection in downtown Dawson Creek. That mural actually shows the Mile Zero monument. The fourth clue is seen in the lower right-hand corner of the Memory Lane Mural Project sign. If you look carefully, you can see the intersection with its flagged monument standing in the middle of the road. You are looking at Mile Zero. So, if you're intent on composing that mandatory photo of Mile Zero of the Alaska Highway, just walk a couple of blocks to downtown Dawson Creek, and there it is. Incidentally, I recommend an early morning visit to avoid all the hustle and bustle of the city traffic. There are many YouTube videos and online accounts of the construction history of the Alaska Highway, so I won't repeat that history here. Suffice to say that the highway was constructed over 9 months in 1942 by the U.S. Army engineers with Canadian civilian support. The construction of the Alaska Highway was a remarkable engineering feat needed to assure security of Alaska and northwestern Canada. Yes, the highway changed the lives of Indigenous people whose homeland it crossed. Yes, the highway is a corridor along which as many as 300,000 people travel every year. Yes, the highway is a core piece of road infrastructure needed for economic development. But like many political decisions, the highway has a complicated history. So this brings us to a close of this video, where we traveled from western Saskatchewan across Alberta into northeastern British Columbia, ending at the city of Dawson Creek, where the Alaska Highway officially starts at Mile Zero. In the next video, we'll continue our travels to Yukon along some beautiful country that crosses the northern Rocky Mountains. If you've learned something new or just enjoyed what you saw, please consider liking the video, or better still, subscribe to the Rambles with Robin and Ruby YouTube channel. Stay well, and we'll see you later.